Hello, hello, and welcome to this show. This is Beverly Fells Jones, the Silver Fox of Consciousness. I'm an author, speaker, and seminar leader. And so what you will find on this show is that I talk about how to expand your world of thought, explore the world of positive thinking, law of attraction, and consciousness. I intend to share with you information that will enlighten and empower you in your life, because I'm here to encourage you to think in the positive and to show you that miracles can happen, because I truly believe you have been given the power of word and thought to create the life that you desire. If this is your first time here, welcome. I am so glad that you found me. For those of you who have listened before, welcome back. Be sure to hit that like button so Google can put this in other people's feeds so they can find me. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe and share this with others so that they can know they have the power to create the life they desire. Now, in the previous one, this is part 2. We are in The Secret of Overcoming Hard Conditions in the Prosperity Secret of the Ages by Catherine Ponder. And just to review a little bit as we talk about Cain and Abel. Cain was the tiller of the soil. The name means possession. He symbolizes earthly human phase of man's being that is self-centered, possessive, fearful of its rights, always trying to grab or force its wills on others. It is the Cain phase of man's being that usually produces the hard conditions in life which he must face and either fight to overcome. Now, Abel, Cain's brother, is just the opposite. Abel means breath, symbolizing man's invisible or spiritual nature. So Cain is the carnal side, and Abel is your spiritual side, the yin and the yang. So Abel, spiritual nature, constantly tries to harmonize, balance, adjust, refine, and bring forth the good in man's mind, body, and affairs. So we're going to continue on in this. If you haven't listened to part 1, I suggest you go into the playlist for Catherine Ponder and find part 1 and listen to it first. We're going with the section that says how to restore your good. As previously stated, the Cain phase of man's being as human will. Let me say that again. The Cain phase of man's being as human will, human force, possessiveness, domination can cause great havoc in the realm of marriage and family relationships. When you, like Cain, try to force your good, you seem to kill it. That is, it disappears for a time and serious problems result. Then you find yourself confused, bewildered, and fearful in the land of Nod. But you do not have to remain there. Okay, let me say that again. You do not have to remain there. Always the Abel or the spiritual phase of your being is at work trying to harmonize, balance, refine, readjust, and bring forth good, even in the midst of inharmony and confusion. This is shown in the fact that even though Abel was killed, a third child was later born to Adam and Eve. This son's name was Seth, a word which means compensation, substitution, restoration. Today, the fields of philosophy, psychology, psychiatry, and holistic medicine, as well as religion, all advocate the use of the Now, I'm going to put this in quotes. Spiritual law of substitution and compensation. Wow. So along comes Seth. It's a replacement for Abel. He's a substitute, or he's restoring them to have that other child. Right? You are using the law of substitution and compensation every time you accentuate the positive in the face of negative experiences. She gives an example. When it seems that your good has been lost, it is time to let your Seth power of substitution be born into the situation. It is time to substitute a new approach to the situation. Instead of condemning yourself or the others involved in your apparent problem or loss, substitute this thought. And this is coming at a really good time for me, because I've recently experienced what can be termed a loss, but it had to be done. I had to walk away from something that I at one time enjoyed, and then I lost that enjoyment. So let's see what she says when I have this apparent problem or loss, or you do. My good is not lost in this experience. My good cannot be taken from me. It cannot be withheld from me. It cannot be diminished, dissipated, or exhausted. Oh, I need to read that again for you. My good is not lost in this experience. My good cannot be taken from me. It cannot be withheld from me. It cannot be diminished, dissipated, or exhausted. My good and the good of all concerned is now reborn, restored in God's own wonderful way. She gives a story. A divorcee proves the success law of substitution. So does this work? A woman was deserted by her husband and left with several children. Her family and friends spoke of her sorry husband in no uncertain terms. But this woman refused to criticize or condemn him. She knew he had never found his right place in life, and that he was still confused and uncertain about many things. When he asked for a divorce, she granted his wish. She refused to be bitter or attempt to legally enforce the financial settlement and monthly payments due her and the children. She knew that what she fought to get from her former husband, she would have to fight to keep. She was not interested in that arrangement. Instead, every time she thought of her former husband and his action, she blessed him and said to herself, "My good cannot be withheld from me. The blessings that belong to me and my children by divine right cannot be withheld from us. They now come to us in harmony and divine order, and we welcome them." She then returned to the profession in which she had served prior to marriage. In due time, she heard from her former husband. He had joined the armed forces. He advised that he made an allotment to her and their children, and they would begin receiving monthly support payments immediately. For many years, his financial support continued until he retired from the armed forces. He helped to educate all their children and even made his former wife beneficiary to his estate. All concerned prospered and led satisfying lives. How different it might have been if this woman had tried to force her former husband to provide for her. So when I think about this, deep down, he was a good man. Deep down, for me in this story, he took care of his obligation. And as it says a little earlier in this story, she knew he had never found his right place in life. All right. So I think by joining the military, he found his right place because he wound up retiring from there. So next title is When All Seems Lost. So when it seems that you've made grave mistakes in some situation, so that all seems lost, remind yourself of this great success law of substitution, restoration. There is in all the universe, including man, a balancing power for good ever at work. This balancing power of good causes readjustment and healing to overcome every transgression or every wandering away from that which is wholesome and best in life. This great law of restoration is clearly set forth in biblical history and symbology. Each time that man has wandered away from his good or gone to some extreme, he has experienced a negative reaction. He has entered the confused land of Nod, but such reaction has led man back to a saner point of view. It is through this process that man has evolved and continues to grow into a greater understanding of his divine potential and of the countless blessings that are his divine right. So call on that success law of restoration. When you find you've made mistakes, instead of condemning and blaming yourself or other people or the unpleasant results, use your Seth power of substitution and try a new approach. Know that you can overcome or come up over the hard experience, which will then dissolve by calling on the great success law of restoration. So many people miss their present blessings because they are still lamenting unhappy experiences of the past and blaming themselves or other people for them. They often say, if that had not happened, then I would be happy today. But that experience or these people, they ruined my life. Okay, I'm dramatizing that. Forgive me. Anyway, she says, never fool yourself into believing that anyone or any experience can keep you down unless you let them. Don't give people or experiences that much power over you. Unfortunate, unhappy experience of the past or present have only the power you grant them in your thinking. Instead of blaming difficulties, unhappiness, or failures on others, call on the success law to restore your good. So I'm going to skip a couple sections. They are stories that she has. But I want to go over this section. Help others restore their good. Because for me, that can be rather important. Yes? Okay. The wonderful thing about the success law of substitution and restoration is that you can help others restore the good that seems lost for them. For instance, an accountant was working in an office with a group of businessmen, most of whom felt dissatisfied with their jobs. It was discouraging to listen to all the criticism, dissatisfaction, and negative talk that was daily voiced by these men. This accountant knew his fellow workers were killing or dissolving their good by their negative talk. He began arriving at the office half an hour early each morning. He would then write down the names of all the men in the office and write out this statement for them. There is good for you. You ought to have it, and you claim it now. Your good is at hand and you experience it. During the day, when these men spoke of terms of job dissatisfaction, this man would silently declare for them, your good is at hand and you experience it now. Within a few short weeks, nice things began to happen to these men. One man decided to retire from his job, to move permanently to his ranch and do the work he loved the most. Today he is a much happier man for having done so. Another man in the group, a lawyer, received an offer of a promotion if he would transfer to another city with a leading law firm. He is now happily relocated there. Several men passed tests for better jobs with their present company. One employee finally passed the required test and was certified as a public accountant after having sought it for 10 years. This entire group was blessed after only one of them began to declare, your good is at hand and you experience it. She tells a story, healing of cancer. A salesman's wife became quite ill. Hospital tests indicated she had cancer. This man consulted with his minister and asked, shall I tell our children how sick their mother is? Shall I tell them she may even have cancer? The minister advised, no, if you want her to get well, use the law of substitution in this situation. Refuse to speak in terms of the diagnosis. Speak in terms of her getting better and getting well, if you want to help her recover. Under no circumstances mention cancer unless you want it to become a reality. He followed this advice. He told his children that their mother had been quite ill but is on the road to recovery. Thus, no fear about her condition was generated, only hope and expectancy of recovery. After several weeks of treatment, further tests were made and all evidence of cancer had faded from his woman's system. Soon she was released from the hospital, returned home, and fully recovered. The good was victorious as the good thought was persistently held. Cancer has recently been described as an anxiety disease. Now, this was written in 1964. The emotional history of many cancer patients shows that in some period of their lives, they felt anxious, insecure, unloved. They subconsciously retained that feeling, which often turned into bitterness, a critical state of mind, and may have even generated strong feelings of hostility and hate. In many cases of serious illness, there is a feeling of loss of good in some form. If that feeling of lost good can be divinely restored, if the patient can realize his good can still appear, that attitude can help him recover from his illness rather than succumb from it. Many people who are not under the dread diagnosis of cancer but who fear it can neutralize and dissolve any possibility of cancer if they can neutralize and dissolve the feelings of bitterness, disappointment, and hurt caused by unhappy experiences and relationships of the past or present. Just declare, my good is not lost, my good is at hand and appears now. The good is now victorious in my past, present, and future, and may actually add pain-free years to your life. So think about that. Some of you may say, I don't know, but just think about that possibility. I've seen articles about people whose attitude. One woman turned on Netflix and watched nothing but comedies, and she just laughed and laughed and happiness, and she was positive, and she went through her treatments and everything, and she went in, as doctors call, into remission. No matter what. Now this says cancer, but you know, other things. It's like I've had issues with my digestive system. So instead of saying I'm experienced, this is me, I just say my digestive system is just having some issues right now, but I'm going to change the way I eat. I'm going to meditate. But I was not the problem within my digestive system, if you understand what I'm saying. You are not the disease. You are not the illness. You just have this little problem right now that you need to address. And as long as you don't say, I am the illness, but I currently have this illness, there's a difference, then mentally you can make changes, as well as you doing the treatment or whatever is required in order to turn that around and expel that illness from your body. Now next to the last section, it says what to think about death. A businessman became quite upset when his only daughter was killed suddenly in an accident. He felt that a cruel fate had cut her down in the prime of life. He felt cheated, defenseless, bitter, rebellious, instead of realizing that his daughter had apparently completed her life cycle in spite of her youth and had gone on to another phase of eternal life. He grieved, bitterly dwelling on his tragic loss. Within a year, he developed cancer. Within 2 years, he had passed on too. His wife was then left alone, having lost both her daughter and husband within a few short years. To all appearances, it seemed a heartless situation. But this woman had learned of success attitudes and knew how to face death, so that it could not defeat her. Though she loved and missed both her daughter and husband very much, she realized that the soul of man, created in the image and likeness of God, has power of choice to come into this world and to leave it, when the unfoldment of the soul warrants such changes. Thus, what seemed a sudden premature death on the part of her daughter was in reality soul choice. It was definitely not the cruel action of blind fate or supposedly a vengeful God. She also realized that her husband had not emotionally released their daughter. By nourishing a feeling of loss through soul choice, he had followed their daughter into the next plane of eternal life. With this realization, the wife had been able to release them both, began building a new life for herself. It has not been an easy adjustment, but this woman realizes that her first responsibility is to her own spiritual and mental, emotional, and physical unfoldment on this earth plane just now. Of all the hard condition man has to overcome in the business of living, rising above the loss of a loved one through death is among the greatest challenges of all. But it can be met victoriously when you realize there is no death, only new experiences in eternal life, which come when the soul of man is ready for them. As in all situations involving human relationships, it is necessary to loosen up emotionally, let go, and let God work for good in His own way. Someone has said that when you take the you out of mourning it becomes mourning. So mourning as in feeling sorry, in grief, and it becomes morning as the new morning, as the daylight, as sunrise for your loved one in another phase of life. It's a new morning for them and a new morning for you in your present life experiences. Grief must give way to the new dawn. So a phrase that she heard years ago has helped her, Catherine, through many changes in her life experiences. She says, welcome change and call it good. It applies to all phases of your life. Your good is often reborn through unexpected changes that come into your life, almost in spite of yourself. What you may at first be tempted to look upon in scorn may be the good being reborn into your life and affairs. Welcome change and call it good. I trust that this chapter has covered some of the hard conditions in life you have been concerned about. If you have been confused and been in the land of naught, you now know how to reclaim your good. It is not loss. It never has been, because your restored good now awaits you. And I'm going to read that statement that she said previously, this affirmation. My good is not lost. My good is at hand and appears now. The good is now victorious in my past, present, and future. And it frees you up. It gives you strength. It gives you a way to live your life and to be able to move forward and look forward to your wonderful future. So be sure to like, subscribe, and share so others can know they have the power to create the life that they desire. And as you believe, let it be done to you, and it is so, and I will see you in the next video.